We live.
We
You wanna
live, we
cross stream
live.
this?
Huh?
Wanna cross stream this?
We are cross streaming.
Okay.
Oh, I guess from my okay, you mean on your head? Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
All right. To the people who are listening in, um, mainly Vince, Justice, everybody else, thank you guys for letting us know that our sound was off. Seems like everything should be good now. You sound cool.
Microphone
We
check.
sound cool.
Microphone check.
Yeah, you're coming through here.
I'm gonna check the Facebook screen.
Yeah, go ahead. Um, mainly Vince, Justice, everybody else, thank you guys for letting us know that our sound was off. Seems like everything should be good now. You sound cool.
Microphone
We
check.
sound cool.
Microphone check. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
coming through
coming
now.
through here. All right. Dope, dope,
I had
dope.
to wait for the stream to kind of confirm it.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. All right. So, for the third time now, today's topic. Today's topic is traveling during COVID. We've seen that even though most people are stuck at home, they can't travel, they can't
Yeah.
go out and um, go to different countries mainly. We see that some people still have that access and they still have that ability. Here in Canada, Trudeau has decided that on the 22nd of February, it's going to cost people now 2,000 extra dollars if they decide that they want to travel outside of Canada. They have to come back, quarantine for 14 days, and they have to pay. The government is no longer paying for their residency. And that's going to be $2,000 per head. So how do you feel about that? That especially the $2,000 per head, like for a family of four, that's expensive.
Yep. No. So this is the third time, so hopefully I got it down pat this time.
Hey,
Uh, no. So the biggest issue is obviously the discrepancy in how much people earn and stuff like that. So who's this really
mm-hmm.
restricting? Is it restricting everybody to stop traveling, or just people who can afford to travel or afford to pay the extra $2,000 after they travel to stop moving? The goal is to kind of like curb the spread of the virus, right?
Yeah.
And if there's people who have means to pay for that bill and they can just go willy nilly, then that's not really stopping anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there should be like some sort of I guess qualifying procedure to see exactly what it is you're traveling for. If it's leisure travel, then yeah, by all means you can charge those people. Be like, yo, just go pay. But if it's
Mm-hmm.
like an emergency or like a family a necessity for that person to go across the border and then come back, I don't think it's fair for them to have to pay whatever it is they earn. Whatever it is they
Mm-hmm.
earn, I don't think it's fair for them to pay when it's something that's out of their control. But if it's for
Mm-hmm.
like leisure reasons, even if you can't afford, if you want to go outside the country for a vacation, then I guess you got to pay that $2,000.
But that $2,000 is strict for people who don't make a lot, who like you're saying, they could find themselves in a really tough position. Like they could just have um it's either a family member passed away, they could have a graduation coming soon. You never
Yep.
know what it could really be. Everybody could find Anyone can find themselves in a really tough position where they need to leave the country. And it's not very often that these things come up, but for the people that these things do come up, it's really difficult. I could I'm just stuck at home right here, right? But I have friends and family in the U.S. and anything can happen tomorrow. So I'm kind of
Yep.
afraid, I'm kind of scared, and I definitely don't think I'd be willing to take off, do nothing for an entire month, right? Like nothing productive, and at the same
Yeah.
time, have to spend more money
Pay
just to do so.
pay $2,000 on top of that. Yeah.
Yeah, like
It's kind
that's
of
tough.
harsh. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. So like, what's the regulation for it? Like, is it just across the board? Is it like
Mm.
if it's a non-essential travel? That's why you have to pay. But then who determines what is essential, what's not essential? I mean, that's is business essential because livelihood is essential. So if it's a business
Yeah,
trip, would that be considered essential?
absolutely.
So it's a hard, I guess, course for the government itself to navigate in
Hmm.
enforce this. So the easier way would be just like across the board, anybody who decides to go on a vacation, I mean, go outside the country and come back, you have to pay an extra $2,000 for the mandatory quarantine that you have to go that we are putting in, right? So these
Yeah.
people, I'm talking about Canadian citizens, people who are living in Canada, right? Someone who's coming
Hmm.
out from outside the country or who's visiting Canada, then I understand wanting to do that because they're just coming. But someone who's already paying taxes in Canada, having to
Hmm.
go for an emergency and then come back and then be forced to pay an extra $2,000 because we're telling you not to go to your home. You can quarantine at home if you want, but we don't want you to go there. We want you to quarantine here, but
Yeah.
then you have to pay us
And
on top of that. It's
and
like what?
and you see already there's some people who are being treated differently, who are being treated exclusively by the government. So we have people who are like Olympians for this coming up Olympics that was supposed to be last year. They
Yeah,
might they might be able to skate past these rules, you know. And for me, when it's something like this, if it is for our safety, as they put it, right? Like if it is
yeah.
really about us as citizens, making sure that we protect ourselves and protect other people, right? If
Hmm.
that is really the plan, then shouldn't we say that there aren't any exceptions? That's what I would think, right? There's like an Olympian shouldn't be an exception. If I can't leave the country, then I
You
don't
gotta learn
know.
how to run, bro.
Name anybody who's like on the hockey team. Then
You gotta
Sidney
learn how to play
Crosby.
hockey. Then, yeah,
Yeah, Sidney Crosby should have to stay here too. Drake shouldn't be able to go into big air Drake and take off and go wherever he wants and go to whatever place he likes to go to unless he pays that $2,000 too, right? So
that's just how
so
that's just how
people who
society
have money,
works, right?
people have money. That's nothing to them though. 2,000 is a joke.
So I'm saying, so it's one of the things I did say when we talked about this earlier was making
Mm-hmm.
it like a certain percentage, but then
Mm.
also that's gonna be tough because any percentage you put up on how much you earn, that would at first sounded like a good idea when I thought of it. Then you guys kind of trampled it.
The percentage idea of like what you earn,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
tough.
because I thought
It
maybe
because the rich people are the ones who move the economy the most. So it's tough for us to penalize those people, but they shouldn't be able to have, I don't know, like they shouldn't get benefits over the rest of us. They shouldn't be some special aristocratic class that can do whatever they want. They need to be like everybody else. They need to be like all the other people who have to sit at home
they
and quarantine and be afraid of the boogeyman, just like me, man. They shouldn't have those choices.
the least hype right now.
Bruh, it makes me mad, man, because I want to go to the States. I want to be there right now.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
We talked about this on this week's episode of The Undeniable Future. You can catch that anywhere you guys get your podcast. That's The
You're,
Undeniable Future.
yep.
We were talking about uh, well, a lot of people
Hmm.
may not have that amount of money to pay or the 14 days just to sit because they had to do an emergency travel.
Hmm.
So if basically what the government is telling us is if you care about your time,
Yeah.
not only are you going to lose money because you have to stay in quarantine for 14 days, we're going
Hmm.
to add another tax on top of that. So if you can't afford to just lose 14 days, but then you're like, you know what? I'll take the 2 weeks. It's fine.
But
There's
that's
another $2,000 on
that's the
top of
real
that.
tax, in my opinion. The real tax is your time, right? Because
Hmm.
quarantining for 14 days once you get to the States, and then 14 days when you come back, like that's a lot of time. That's a month, an entire month you have to of you not being able to do anything. So like
Yeah.
even if you wanted to go somewhere cool, like let's say you want to go take a trip to, I don't know, the Cayman Islands. You get to the island, you get to see the whole island, it's super nice, and they're like, yeah, you got to chill at this place for 14 days. Who even wants to do something like that? That's my question. Like, I don't understand. Like, no
That was kind
vacation
of
is
the
good enough for me.
that was kind of the thing.
Yeah.
That was kind of the thinking behind like the Raptors playing in Tampa, right? It's like
Hmm.
uh, there's no team that's gonna come and do 14 days of quarantine before they play the Raptors,
For sure.
or when they go there and do that. The league doesn't work like that, right? So they had to
Hmm.
go there and play. And then if they close I would think they just close the border down for everything. But then
Yeah.
that's where the question comes in when there's still going to be emergencies, right? So the
Hmm.
borders are open and people are going back and forth. But now you're making this harder for people who can't afford to pay the $2,000 on top of the 14 days
Hmm.
that they're going to be losing anyway. That's where my issue would be. It's like, I don't know.
What do you feel? What do you feel about travel within your country? So, if it's like us here in Canada, from province to province, how do you feel about that? Just getting on a plane. Honestly, I'll be completely truthful. I don't want to get on a plane right now. I'll be scared out of my mind to get on a
I,
plane.
I think
Be
public
around.
transportation is the issue, right? So if you had like we talked about Drake being able to travel in Air Drake or whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
So if he can do that, and if you can afford to just go places with your own aircraft, or if you can
Yeah.
drive from province to province and you're not in some sort of public transportation, I think that's safer because
Okay.
you're not exposing more people to people who are not around you anyways and not going to be around you, right?
Like you're saying, like if you're in your own whip and you just like, yeah, I'm gonna go to wherever.
Yeah, you say, yeah, I'm gonna drive to Winnipeg tomorrow, or if I'm
Yeah.
gonna drive to Vancouver, or I'm gonna drive to Toronto, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
I think you should be able to do that
Hmm. What?
because you're not endangering people during your travel. I mean, you are if you're
Okay.
gonna be stopping and pouring gas, but then that's why there's
Hmm.
regulations for masks. It's the same thing as being in Manitoba and not wearing a mask if you don't wear one, right? So it's like
Hmm.
if you, as long as you're traveling with the mask and you're using your own mode of transportation, I think you should be able to do that.
Would you get into a plane right now?
No.
Like you, like what would be your fear? Would your fear be catching COVID, or would your fear be that it would just be like I don't know. I feel like in a plane right now, I wouldn't really necessarily fear getting the virus specifically. Just I don't know what would happen. Like, would I be able to fly back? Especially if it's like there and back.
Yeah, yeah,
There's so
exactly.
many other little things like logistically that just make something like that so tough.
I still think the COVID is also a main factor. You wouldn't want to get
Yeah.
COVID because you're going somewhere, right? So that's obviously the biggest one. But then there's also the ones we just talked about. Is the government just going to switch it up and be like, yo, if you decided to go, starting to like when they first started, didn't they give
Mhm.
like a timeline to be like, hey, any Canadians who are outside Canada, you have this amount of time to come
Yeah.
back.
That was me, bro. That was me. So I was in the States,
Yes.
and it was like March. It was March and I was chilling. I went to go see my girlfriend in the States. And then while I'm there, 2 days before my flight back, I see Justin Trudeau on the news. I just like on Instagram,
You
because
got
it's
beef
not
with
like
this guy,
it's
huh?
not like I got CTV, right? I'm just like on
Yeah.
Instagram. And Trudeau's like, if you're Canadian, it's time to come back home now. I will remember those words forever for the rest of my life. Like I'll never
Yeah, I got
forget that.
curfew.
Bro, that I was scared. I was like, yo, this is serious, but I didn't think it was that serious, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then next thing I know, I come back home. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go back to the States in May. I'll be cool. I'll just go back in May and go see people. I didn't know that this was
Oh,
gonna be a year later. Here we are now, right?
so you got your beef is stemming from a long and this is like
Yeah,
a personal
yeah,
thing
bro.
for
I'm
like
pissed.
you are a law abiding citizen who when the government was like, you know what, this is the restriction, we're gonna have this under control, whatever it is, they
Mhm.
didn't, right? It's been over a year now and people are still restricted. You were, I mean, the worst fear is you go wherever you travel, you have a
Mhm.
timeline, right? Like I'm gonna go from this time to this time,
Yeah.
right? And then when you go past that, you gotta figure it out.
Mhm.
So it was 2 days before your flight. So you still like, yo, I'm chilling. I got 2 more days. It is, you know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? And
but
if
when
you're
I
someone
got
like me, who really doesn't
by
watch
the
the
time I
news
got
like
home though, I
that,
was forced to do a 14-day quarantine.
or by the time you got home, you're forced to do quarantine anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the state's numbers were wilding at the time, man. We was cool, so I understand why.
I went. No, my biggest issue is
America was trying to catch
I
up with the
went
rest
by
of the
the
world.
I went through LaGuardia, like New York, and I won't lie to you, I was in that airport like I was standing there like looking like, yo, anybody. I was waiting for someone to cough. Like you, like I dare you right now to cough in this place. I will call
Oh,
security in here so quick, boy. I will be the best Karen you have ever seen in your life. Yeah, I
so
was so scared.
you were ready to snitch on anybody who
Oh
was
hell yeah.
showing symptoms, eh?
Oh hell yeah. And it was like that was like March, right? So it was new. So it wasn't like everybody was completely scared of the virus. Some people didn't even believe the virus was real. I mean, those people still exist today, but I think they're just wild and crazy. But
Yeah, yeah.
I was scared, man. I was freaking out. I
What
didn't know what to do.
I think one of the worst parts of COVID in itself is the fact that there's asymptomatic people who
Spread.
can still spread the virus, right?
Yeah.
And that's the worst part of it. Like if it was just once you get it, you show symptoms, and then you're gonna be I guess what's it contagious?
Yeah.
That's different. But the fact that there's people who can still move like everything is fine, right? Like we
Mhm.
seen Rudy Gobert when he was playing and he got COVID, but then he was touching the mics and joking around, and then the
Yeah.
whole Jazz team had to kind of like, and then Donovan
Yeah.
Mitchell got it, and it's like, whoa, we got
Mhm.
people like that who be joking around because it's not the immune system is strong enough to have them walk through it, and that's the worst part of I guess about this thing is that
Yeah.
those people are still contagious, and there's if we just say, oh, just because you got symptoms then you can't travel, so
Mhm.
it's a tough spot, man, because how do you regulate that?
How do you
Because
regulate
unless you go
who's allowed to travel and when? And that's really difficult. Like because if you create some kind of loophole, like let's say you're allowed to
$2,000,
travel you've had if you have a family event like a graduation, right?
yeah, everyone's gonna have a graduation.
Everybody, yo, I'm people are gonna start graduating left and right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Everybody's gonna be graduating. So
every graduation,
if
odd
you can
times of
find
the
an
year, right
excuse not
after
to pay
Christmas.
2,000, 2,000 bucks is steep, bro.
I know. Pay hair too, like, so if you're going with a family, it's a family trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine what's that show um, where they have a bunch of kids.
Oh man, I don't know.
I don't know. It's like those TLC shows where they got a bunch of kids paying two
Yeah, yeah,
thousand
yeah.
per head. Yeah, like if you're in a situation like that, there's no way. You have no choice. You just gotta chill at home. And I understand. Like right now we're in a pandemic. This is uncharted territory. We don't know what we're actually supposed to do.
Hmm.
Um, but it still puts a lot of people in a really tough spot right now to not be able to travel. But then again, how many people have the money to travel at all right now? Like people are struggling during COVID, right?
Do,
Like that
do you
CRB
think they
is
should just
gone,
open
bro.
everything up?
The CRB isn't here anymore. People in America are trying to get their $1,000, $200 checks. They're trying to get their what is that? That they might be getting $3,000 per kid in the states. Like people are struggling right now. There's a lot of people, and there's a class of people who are just fine.
I'm
They've had
flourishing.
lots of money, and they're like, you know what? This is a tough time. I'm gonna take this time to splurge. Like you're saying, I'm gonna really live life. I'm gonna live life for real, extreme.
So do you think, I mean, one of the biggest arguments, I guess, earlier on was the fact that the impact that the pandemic had on the economy was way worse
Mhm.
than if they just let it go. And then I guess they just not close anything down, but
Yeah,
the people who would show symptoms would have to quarantine and deal with it like any other flu, right? So if there's a cold going around during the winter, Any other year, you're not gonna shut down every single business because it's a cold, right? But
Yeah.
then it was the mortality rate. But then people look at it was I think it was the infection rate, how many people tested positive. But then if you see the number of people who did test positive and the number of people who died, it was like a percentage, right?
Mhm.
Which is a lot still because I think America's like what 450,000 just to COVID. But then also
Yeah.
there's people with underlying conditions who I don't know, man. It's so many things. Do you think just opening the country up, saving the economy, saving people's businesses would have been the better choice at any point before now? But they're now charging people to come back to their own country.
I don't, I think if we had opened the economy the way some people, especially people who are super right leaning, want us just they like
Hmm.
I just open everything up. It's not that bad. I don't think those people are right at all. I think they're wrong. Um, I mean, as somebody who's just like not a scientist, I think the best possible way, personally, would have been if we put all, like in my opinion, put all the restrictions, every
Yep.
restriction we can think of, restrict all of it. Like I don't even understand how people are able to leave the country right now. I'm talking about every restriction possible, and then we start taking away those restrictions one by one. And if one makes it spike, we bring it back. That's what I would like. That's what I think
So
would have been best. Treat this as the worst possible case scenario, and then from there slowly peel back restrictions. Right? I think
I
we
think that
weren't
yeah, go
prepared at
ahead.
the beginning of this. Like we didn't know just how bad it would be, and a lot of politicians were afraid to just tell people that we're taking away your freedoms. If you live in China, they were welding your doors shut. You didn't have a choice. If you got COVID, you got COVID, and you were stuck at home, right? And right now, people in Wuhan are going to concerts. They're,
Yeah,
what I'm saying, they have dance
that's
classes. They're
that's what I
celebrating
was saying.
because, yeah, but they don't have freedom. Freedom is the problem. We have too much freedom here in the Western world.
Freedom is the problem.
Freedom is the issue.
Did you ever think you say those words?
No, nah, never in my life. But
Freedom is
that's
the
honestly the
problem.
truth, right? If you
Yeah.
live in an authority, right now, what we really needed was authoritarianism to tell people, hey, this is what you got to do for people's general safety. But we don't live like, by we, I mean like me and you who live here in Canada,
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who live in the United States, United Kingdom, um, in Western countries. We have all these freedoms, and we're afraid of people taking away our freedoms. But
Yeah,
in the in
I
the
think the
cut,
tiptoeing is what made it worse.
yeah, China straight up was like, we're not just shutting down we're shutting it down to the most extreme. And I don't think that I personally wouldn't have liked to be in China during what was going
Yeah.
on there, but that was the situation. They're past it, and they're used to a government that does everything extreme. So
Yeah,
they're
that's what I'm
all right.
saying. So like the fact that the government has to tiptoe around like what the civilian the citizens want,
Mm-hmm.
um, I guess political interests. I'm saying like you got businesses that have so much stake in the government, and people were like, you know what, I'm gonna fail if you make this decision. So you got to keep the country open
Yeah.
because I'll lose money, right? That type of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I think that's what made it harder for Western countries to deal with it than I guess other places. Because if we notice, because we seen it coming, right? We seen it go from like Asia to like Eastern Europe to like the West,
If
right?
you're
Until
afraid
you
of
got
things
to
like me and you, yeah. Like if you see things happening in the news and you freak out about them, yes. Most of the general
we see,
population doesn't even look at the general news, like everyday news. So they're not
yeah.
affected by it. When Wuhan started,
Well,
man, I was going crazy. I was like, I don't know what's going on in Wuhan, but this could be a problem. But even I didn't
yeah.
expect it to be as bad as it actually was, right?
That's what I'm saying. So if my question the whole time was, oh, so are we waiting until we get a certain number of people dead before we start putting strict restrictions? Because you think, oh, we do trade. People are traveling from all these countries that are experiencing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shut down the country before this cases spike, right?
Yeah.
Contain it before it does. and then you don't lose as many people. The less people would die from COVID, I guess.
Mhm.
But then that would be like a reaction thing. How is that going to be popular among the people? Probably not. But is that the best thing that you could have done? In my opinion, that could have been the best thing at that point. But since you didn't do it, whenever you say you're shutting down, you got to be consistent with it. You can't then just be like, oh, we've been shut
Mhm.
down for so long. Now we got to open up this and that. Oh, now we got to go back and shut down again. Now, what are you doing, right? Like
Yeah,
I think that there was no playbook for this. But
absolutely.
we've seen that the experts, I guess, advise the politicians to do the right thing, and
Mhm.
politicians decide to do the opposite because now they're not just focusing on a health issue; they're also focusing on the economy. They're also focusing on, I guess,
Public backlash,
yeah,
right?
public backlash,
Because
right?
economy,
But then,
because politicians got to worry about getting reelected.
hmm
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. So, like Fauci would tell Trump, like, "Yo, you gotta do this," and this guy will go listen to the experts in the economy. They'll be like, "Yo, if you do
Mhm.
that, this is gonna be irreversible. Take about 15 years for us to come back from this kind of damage from that decision." So now you gotta weigh, be like, okay, a couple thousand people die, or we ruin the country for 15 years. Well, what can we do right now? And
Yeah.
that's a tough spot that politicians will be in. But we talked about this, right? We said
We put
we
them in those
elected them.
positions to make
We
tough
put them in
decisions.
those positions to make tough decisions.
And when
That's
you
why
make the
I'm not.
wrong decision, if you're out there and you make the wrong decision, I'm gonna trash you for it. That's
And you
why
know
I
what happened with
exist.
Cuomo?
Yo, Cuomo went
Because
from hero to zero real quick. I,
because
yo,
because I remember during the election or right before the election, like especially during the summer,
mhm.
there was a time where he was on CNN all the time. Him and his brother were getting all this praise for going up there
Oh yeah,
and clowning. They would talk about their family issues, like go back and forth. Like, you
they
need to
had the
call
huge
mom.
swab talking about like how much it hurts to have that thing up your nose, like how
Yeah,
it
right.
feels.
And then fast forward 2021,
Mm.
this guy's under fire being told to step down. I'm confused. Like, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, anytime they say there's an investigation into a politician, I'm happy about it. Any politician, whether you're on the left or the right or in the
Yeah.
center, I don't care who you are. I think we should always investigate anybody who holds public office because we're paying them to make the best decisions for all of us, right? So
Yep.
it makes sense. And if this is a real question about Cuomo and his leadership, then look
Hmm.
into it. The man won an Emmy. He took that Emmy and he didn't complain about the Emmy. He didn't say no, I don't deserve this. So you got your award. So now you got to face the backlash. That's what comes with it. When you get praise, what also comes with praise is haters. And
Yeah.
if those haters have facts and they have
And
truth
accountability too.
and they
I'm
hold you
not gonna say
accountable, ooh,
because I
that's
think
tough.
they say it didn't report like the deaths at like nursing homes
Yeah,
or something like that. Like he was kind of
mhm,
downplaying it too.
exactly. And that's the part
And taking
that's
and
kind of
taking the praise for it.
in my mind that's disgusting, right? And I we heard of stories here in Canada about people who are working at nursing homes or long-term care facilities who just left their jobs, and more people died, not even just of COVID, but just died because these people weren't taking their
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
responsibilities seriously. And
I
so
mean,
when
not seriously, but they had fears, right? They had a valid
they had fears,
fear.
they had fears. No, they weren't taking
Yeah,
it seriously, bro. If you know that if you dip from work, people are gonna die, then you have a moral
dude.
obligation to stay,
What's the
don't you?
choice? What's the choice, Lee?
What do you mean?
All the cases were spiking in
Yeah.
nursing homes and care facilities, and you work there, and you're
Uh-huh.
like, okay, I'm getting paid this much. It's not like we're getting a raise for risking our lives every single day. It's our
Yeah.
responsibility. But everybody else gets to stay home and stay away from disease, and we get put in a danger zone. But there's also, I guess, when schools were still open, right?
Hmm.
Oh no, when schools were shut down. So now, not only am I not getting a raise, but now I gotta go pay someone to watch my kids for the time that I'm at work from the same check that wasn't enough before this pandemic, and now I'm also
Yeah.
risking my life to go back. It's not fair. It wasn't fair for the essential workers initially, right?
It's not fair for them. I believe the government there had a responsibility to pay those people more because their work was in far higher demand all of a sudden, right?
Hmm.
I think that should have definitely been put in place. But the people who just straight left their jobs, knowing that these
You
people
would leave,
couldn't take
bro.
care of them, they knew that those people couldn't take care of themselves. Like, wouldn't that weigh on you though, Steve? Like, wouldn't you be at
It
home
would.
like it
It
would weigh
would.
on you knowing like, oh yo, I left Greta just chilling, right? She needs to take a shower tomorrow. She can't. And I know I'm the person who's supposed to be there, but nah. Like that
I
was
hear what you're
I
saying.
find that to be like,
Morally, morally, that decision is
yeah,
hard. It's a hard one to make, right?
it's
But
not
no
just a
one's
hard one,
supposed to
it's
be put.
reprehensible. That's a crazy moral decision, man.
No one's supposed to be put in a position to be making decisions like that, though. Like if
For sure.
right now we we're saying schools shut down, kids are
Hmm.
learning from home, right?
Yeah.
And they need a caregiver or someone to be with them all day because maybe you may have young kids who can't take care of themselves, but you're
Hmm.
also a frontline worker. So now
Hmm.
instead of just the money you've been having or you've barely been getting by with this whole time just got cut in half because now you need a full-time person to be watching your kid. And also they've made it difficult for you to go drop your kids off at your parents' house and then pick them up after work.
Yeah.
You got people calling the cops for you on you for that, right?
Hmm.
So what is the most sensible solution in a situation like that? I think I understand. It's not, I wouldn't endorse it, but I understand someone saying, you know what, I got a choice to make. Should I keep my job or should I stay alive and make sure my family is good?
I I get it. Like that's
Because
a
it's not
tough
like people were
decision,
staying
right?
home weren't getting money. There was
Yeah.
money for people to help them sustain their lifestyle at home. So if you stayed home,
Hmm.
the government was still supporting you, but then you weren't getting some. I think it was kind of harsh on
On the workers.
what you call it? Yeah, essential workers. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like, okay, if we're going back to our idea of travel, right?
Hmm.
How much was a CRB a month? For those who got the maximum amount, 2,000 a month,
Yeah.
right? So the government is pretty much telling us, right, that we're willing to give you $2,000 a month to take care of yourself. But if you're in a really tough position right now and you got to leave the country for some reason, then you got to give us back that 2,000. That same money
Yeah,
that
but that
you're
was
struggling with, that you
that's
struggle.
if
I
you're
mean,
traveling.
one,
It's
they
not,
stopped giving out CRB, right? So like
yeah.
most people have maxed it out, but 2,000 is it's steep, bro. Like, so the government has a certain responsibility in this situation, I think, to just like, why not just end travel completely? That's what I don't get.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Why not just shut
that would have
down
been.
travel?
That's what I was
Like,
saying.
isn't that simpler?
That's what I was saying, bro.
But then if they did try to shut down travel, imagine what um, air companies would think, like
Yeah.
flight companies. They wouldn't be happy about that,
Hmm.
right? And I believe last year, Air Canada was one of the worst performing stocks in the entire stock market, right? So they're in a
Yeah.
tough spot. People aren't investing, and they can't put enough planes in the air. So do you think we have some kind of responsibility? Um, if you're the government, do you think that there's a responsibility to keep these companies afloat, or if they can't stay afloat, be like the ultimate capitalist, just be like, sorry, that
So
sucks.
the thing about it is this thing affected businesses in general, right? So
Okay.
you got the mom and pop shops who shut down initially
Hmm.
because there's restrictions. There's I guess they couldn't they had to be shut down. If you own a hair salon,
Hmm.
it's non-essential, so you're shut down, and you go for months without going to work or whatever it is, and you start going through your savings, and then you know what I'm saying now you
Yep.
got to shut down your business because you can't afford to maintain it if you, especially if you didn't do the paperwork right. They had like support for businesses that had the paperwork done right, but then I guess
Hmm.
it was a pandemic. It's not like people were prepared for it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I don't think the government should. They should give everybody the same chance.
Okay.
That's all I think. So if you're a big corporation, like right now we were talking about the what was that company, um, the hedge fund guys who were losing money on GameStop, right?
Yeah.
And then they the trading companies or the trading apps stepped in to kind of like, you know,
Hmm.
stop the bleeding. That's
Yeah.
not right because you can't do that to save someone because they, I guess, but then it's a
Mm.
business, and
Yeah.
politicians get supported. They get support from all these big companies. So
And
most of their
COVID is going to end, right? There's going to be a time where COVID is no longer a problem that we have to deal with, you know, so seriously. Whether
Mhm.
that be a year from now, whether that be 2 years from now, we don't know exactly.
Yep.
But we're going to want these air companies to be working at full force after that, right? Everybody's going to want to travel. Everybody's going to want to travel after this. People are going
I
to
think
want to
a
go
lot of people.
all over the world. Yeah, bro, people are going to want to
I
go
think it's gonna take a
everywhere.
while. I think it's gonna take a while that
Nah,
people are gonna try to
nah,
kind of like. I'm telling you, man.
nah.
People are gonna
People
be
are going to want to
skeptical
be everywhere.
for a minute.
You're telling me after COVID, if you got money to go to Bangladesh, you're not going to be like, yo, I'm going to just see what's popping in Bangladesh. I've been
Hey, I don't
stuck in my
know. I
room
don't
all this
know
time.
if Bangladesh is telling the truth about their numbers. I'm not gonna dodge this COVID for this whole time.
Yeah.
Just go get it in Bangladesh. Nah, bro.
But
Hold on, quick. We have Austin Crowder in the Facebook live comments,
hey, what's good, Austin?
and he did say Trump would have been re-elected if he did anything about COVID, and then he also said money doesn't mean life. So I guess he's talking about when we
Mm-hmm.
talked about workers who were leaving.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah. So
Crowder's for. I
I just
think
wanted to
Crowder's
point that
right
out.
about Trump for sure because had Trump um, had Trump not had to deal with COVID, he probably would
Hmm.
have had one of the greatest economies in American history going
Hmm.
into that election, and that would have been quite difficult to stop him being. I mean, the election, Biden won by a lot of votes, right? But in all honesty, the difference between those two, right, between like 80 some million and 85 million, isn't a lot of people. There's
Yeah.
300 million people in the country. So
Hmm.
just a few people changing their mindset, the way they see things, would have completely changed that vote. And I think a lot of people were really mad at the way Trump dealt with certain things, like shutting down the border at first. But now everybody, like, we're sitting here going, bro, hey, should shut
Should
down
have
the
shut
borders
down the
completely.
border.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because hindsight is 2020. So we can look back now and
Hmm.
easily say that he made those mistakes. But when he wanted to shut down all travel from China, people didn't think that was crazy, right? I mean, people thought that was crazy. They called him xenophobic at the time.
It's the president that he said though,
Mm,
right? Because he had the Muslim ban before that, which a lot of people thought was crazy, right? And then he had like
yep.
the tariffs that he put on trade with China already and
Hmm.
trade with Canada and all these other countries, right? So for him to just come out and say, "Hey, we shut down the travel from China," it seemed like it was like part of like you know what I'm saying? Like that's he would
Yeah, like
he's
he,
looking for an
yeah.
opportunity. It sounded like it was being opportunistic. That was a problem with Trump. But then also you talked about him having the best economy going to an election, right?
Hmm.
Be right before COVID.
Yeah.
His options were shut down the country and tank the economy,
Hmm.
right? But then the other side was a lot of the what do you call it? The conservative people did not want the country shut down. So you
Mm,
doing that, you shutting down the country means you're gonna ruin the economy, and you're also gonna get your fan base mad at you because they don't want that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like some people are still protesting mass right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
and then election is coming up. Who do you think he's gonna listen to? He's gonna listen to Dr. Fauci, who's telling him this is what's best for the country, or he's gonna
Mm.
do what's best for his base. That was the issue now that he was battling right before. I think right before the election will be okay. If we just play it off and say it's like a common cold or whatever it is,
But if he had done, I think Trump would have done better if he had done anything. He did his plan of fixing the situation was to do
mhm,
literally nothing on purpose. He's like, I just don't want to deal with this problem. Because there are other things where I'm doing well in his mind, and he's like, I would rather
uh-huh,
talk about that stuff. I don't want to talk about this thing that I'm failing tragically at. And now we're at a situation where we all thought the vaccines were going to fix the whole problem, right? Trump said, yo, don't worry. There's vaccines on the way. We got vaccines on the way. They'll be here soon. The vaccines are here, bro. I'm still at home quarantining. So somebody tell me right now, when are these vaccines going to be available enough that I'm going to be cool? When are we going to get
yeah.
to the point where the numbers aren't spiking? Because here in Alberta, the numbers are cool now, right? Like they're going down slowly. They're going down at a good rate. But at the
Yeah,
same
we got
time,
a
we're
we got
still
a
in this
couple comments
situation.
here. More from Austin where we're saying it was more than just the last election that Trump messed up on, and he had the Muslim ban. And
Hey,
then Tyler Rosno said, except it wasn't a Muslim ban, but whatever.
yo,
What do you have to say to that?
that it wasn't a Muslim ban.
Mhm.
It was named the Muslim ban. I get where Rosnos is coming from. He's pretty
Yeah.
much what he's trying to say. It was certain countries. It wasn't all Muslim countries, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, look, I'm not calling Donald Trump a racist, right? I'm not saying that I'm not saying that he has anything against certain people and
But
certain races. But you
but
know what I'm saying? If it looks like a chicken, it sounds like a chicken, and it acts like a chicken, then I'm probably going to call it a chicken. But here's the thing,
yeah.
we can't keep on giving excuses for this guy. Like, he's not even the president anymore. It's at the point where we need to call out what he did for what it was. And
Yeah.
at first, when the Muslim ban, now that we're calling it, right? When it happened
Hmm.
in the beginning, it was
No, we
something.
shouldn't call it that. Call it what it was.
What was it? What was
It
it?
was a ban on certain countries that happen to mostly have large Muslim populations.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it and as a politician, you can always find a way to word things to make them seem like they're not what they are, right? Because really, Donald Trump had a base, and I don't see the Muslim ban as being any different than than the way he's talked about when he said certain things like Charlottesville, when he said there's good people on both sides. He did say right after that, which people forget, that he did say, I condemn racism completely, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
People do forget that Donald Trump said those words right after
It's
Charlottesville, and he
always
said there's
what
good
the
people on
media
both sides.
focuses on, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Donald Trump, I would say Donald Trump is not a racist. He's not somebody who was pushing racist ideas. And I know some people are gonna push back at me for saying that, but he's somebody who supported racists, who allowed racist ideas to proliferate. And there's a good reason to create a difference there. Because if we say that him specifically, that he was a racist, he had racist ideas, that doesn't give us any solutions. But by actually saying, okay, he's allowing all this racist fervor to grow in the country, then we can
Hmm.
actually get to some kind of solution there. But then we're like, okay, then we need to start doing things that limit the amount of racist fervor that's growing. So I think it's important to separate Donald Trump because most of the time when we
We're
get
gonna
mad
turn
at
this
politicians, it's
into
about what
Donald
people
Trump
believe.
topic when it's about COVID-19 and traveling.
And now the Muslim ban, and we're talking about traveling. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, look, I actually will commend um, not just Donald Trump but politicians in general. They could have taken this chance to make it that they shut down travel completely, right? And done it for political reasons, for their own control. So at that time, when Donald Trump was president, or even now, Biden's president, if they could decide, I'm just going to shut down all travel, right? We're going to shut down all businesses, but do it for the sole reason that they want power themselves. And it doesn't seem like overwhelmingly that's what politicians are trying to do at the moment, which is good because there's a lot of control that public
But
officials can take during a time of crisis.
the reason why I think that didn't happen at the time would be we talked about the economy.
Mm-hmm.
Businesses were booming, people were employed. Right, the unemployment rate was at an all-time low.
Yeah.
Right, and
Mm-hmm.
him taking that stance to exactly. So him taking that stance to like, I'm going to shut down the country. I'm going to shut down the travel.
Mm-hmm.
You basically just shooting yourself in the foot. Like Tyler said, Rosno said, it's political suicide.
Called a
Right?
political
You can't do
suicide.
that.
Yeah.
Especially because he was up because of that. The reason why he didn't do it was because that was his campaign. And COVID-19 came in and then just exposed him because now you got a choice to make. Either Americans die or you stop the economy from growing.
Yeah.
And both happened.
Well, here's the thing, right? Those two things, it's like sliders on 2K or something. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a politician, then you got to decide how much detriment to the economy are you willing to take in order to save lives.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when the economy is tanking, there's a certain loss of life that happens inherently because of that. You get
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So the worst case scenario is that you get both the economy tanking
And a large number of
and
people dying, which is
and a
what
large
happened.
number of people dying. Right?
Which is exactly what happened.
Which is in mostly that's what's happened because I think like we said before, I think it would have been different if politicians took the stance originally of let's put the harshest, most most ah I don't want to say anything that'll take away people's freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put the most intense limitations on people's freedoms at the moment and then slowly bring those freedoms back. I think that would have been I think people would have taken that better if it happened that
Want
way
want the
than the way it happened
CCP
now.
policy?
The CCP, which policy are you talking about specifically?
Yeah, just shutting down everything and welding people in. And if I see you outside, you give me
Oh
a
yeah.
beating. Is that
Yeah,
what you want?
exactly. Exactly. Like,
No, but Tyler says he's got a relevant question for us. Go ahead, Tyler. But yeah, keep going until I'll read the question when he asks. Are
yeah,
you
no
opening
problem.
the comments?
Are you looking at the Facebook comments at the moment?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah, I'll
looking at
pull
the
them up.
Facebook comments right now. Okay.
I'll pull them up.
Yeah,
I'll pull
Tyler
them
just
up.
said he has a relevant question. But yeah, I hear it's. So you're saying like if they did what China did, that
Hmm.
would have definitely been very unpopular, and that's also like you said, hindsight 2020, right? Had that worked, how
Yeah.
many people would have been willing to admit that that was the right thing to do after that, right? So you gotta weigh that into it too. So you can't just go ahead
Yeah.
and take like an authoritarian like position with that and just
Hmm.
okay, we're not doing nothing. Everybody go home. We're gonna weld your doors, right? And then people survive,
Yeah,
and then
for
after the
sure.
fact, people are like, yo, it wasn't that bad anyways.
It wasn't that bad, anyways. Look, man, it
You
was it
never do
wasn't
all
that
that.
bad, man. It was cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's hard, and that's why we talked about politicians being put in these positions
Hmm.
so that they make, because when you campaign, you have the best people's best interests at heart, right? You tell them that,
Yeah.
I'm here for you. I'm going to build this. I'm going to do that. Like Trump said, he's going to build the economy. He's going to create jobs. and for the most part, he delivered. But
On the
I think,
promises he had, Trump delivered on his promises for sure to the people he
yeah,
wanted to. If you were a conservative in America during Trump's
mm-hmm,
time, then Trump did a lot of good, in your opinion. If you're talking about just policy, not
yeah,
talking about the words he said and the way he was to the media.
yeah.
Obviously,
But
there's nobody who thinks he did good in that regards. Um, but in general, for
well, I
those
mean,
who
there's a
wanted
lot of
conservative,
people were
yeah,
ready to storm the Capitol.
yeah,
Oh yeah, the wall. We didn't deliver on the wall, but that was I don't know. I don't know who thought he was going to.
putting up the wall. Look, that the whole wall idea, I think, represented an idea. It was the idea of America should get to a point where it's not just letting
Just
people into
fortified.
the country. It was more of
Yeah.
an idea, and I think it was a good slogan, like "Build that
Nah, I
wall,
don't think.
build that wall, build that wall."
No,
Like it's something that's easy to
this guy
say.
literally saw the wall of China running on the south of the border, bro. That's
It's
what he
something that's
saw.
easy to say. Like "build that wall" is something that anybody. It's a good. It's
Yo,
something that's easy to chant. You know what I'm saying?
when I lost it was when he said Mexico was gonna pay for it. That's why I was like, you know what, this guy is just. I don't know how I know
Yeah,
his mind is, but like on policies, he did deliver. Only thing is, he got faced with something a lot of presidents don't have to face in the
yeah,
election year. All right, so we talk about we're both sports fans, right? We know like contract seasons, a lot of athletes who like go off, right?
yeah.
Now imagine this is your contract year, and then COVID strikes, and then all your
On your
games are kind of like
contract year.
weird, right? And
Yeah.
you got have to you got to quarantine for 14 days through like an NBA season, and you got to sit out for 14 days because you got COVID in
Hmm.
your contract year, right? And you're
Yeah.
looking at the stats of the year, they're gonna be like, come on, man, like this is the worst possibility that could happen if you're a basketball player. So for a president and then during a pandemic, right before the election, for that to happen, man, that's wild. I think it was an impossible situation, and we it's easy because Trump was such a polarizing figure that a lot of people hated him, a lot of people liked him. Had it
Mhm.
been Obama or like maybe Bill Clinton, I
Those are
guess other
those are all
presidents who had like
polarizing
a higher
figures.
approval rating,
Yeah, I
huh?
get what you're saying. Like they had, yeah, yeah, yeah. I get your point. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think
Hmm.
people would have given him more leniency on dealing with this than they did Trump. I think because he was so adamant, and he would come out and say crazy stuff like, "Oh, it's just the flu," and then months later, audio comes out knowing that, oh, he knew the severity of this pandemic or how bad it was going
Hmm.
to be, and he just downplayed it in front of everybody.
Saying that it's not
I
that
think
bad
that,
is not a plan. That's I think that was the part where Trump lost a lot of people, especially people within his own base who had obviously dealt with COVID, who had seen their own family members passing away, who had seen the amount of detriment that was happening to the economy because of COVID. That
mhm,
people who supported Trump, who really did care about Trump, and who thought that who wanted to make America great sincerely, right? Those people, a lot of them left because they said, "Man, you got to have a plan, right? If you're a politician, you got to have a plan." And he had
yeah,
people in who were in positions to deal with COVID, but him personally, it wasn't something that he was wanted to talk about anymore. He
yeah,
wanted it to just go
because
away. That's all he
it was
wanted.
threatening his biggest I guess asset going into an election, which is the
Hmm.
economy, right? He came in,
Yeah.
say we're gonna make America great, we're gonna build the economy, gonna create jobs, and everything that he stood for was at risk if he did respond towards that thing. So I think
Hmm.
it's a hard spot for him. But Tyler just asked this question. Do you want to read it or want me to read it?
Oh, you go ahead. Go ahead. Read it. Go ahead.
All right. So he says, so here's where I'm sitting. The Democrats have very successfully pinned the current COVID climate on the Trump administration response. But
Mm.
the thing is, as an economic reality, most of these jobs, or most of those jobs, are not going to come back. The spiral effect caused by the lockdowns will echo for years, if not decades, regardless of how the government chooses to fund the stimulus initiative in the long term. When the time comes for people to wake up to this, there really will be no place for the public to put the blame but those who enforce the lockdowns. Given those politicians almost universally Democrats. How do you see the political climate shifting, if at all, over the next 4 years?
Mm. All right, all right, all right. Hey, I'll give it to you there, Ty. You're spitting. You're spitting facts. You're telling the people the truth. Not for real. Like
Yep.
a lot of the lockdowns, and as we've heard from the WHO, whether you believe in the WHO or not, or think that they are um, pretty much controlled by the CCP at this point, but
Mm-hmm.
the WHO said that the solution, right, cannot be worse than the actual virus itself. And some of these lockdowns are just simply political ploys. They're not actually going to change anything. They're not actually going to make the numbers any better. It just makes people feel like politicians are doing something. And in that case, I think Ty is completely right. After this, we're going to be wondering when we can go back and see the lockdowns that didn't work or that didn't change anything, like California. I believe Ty is in California right now.
Mm-hmm.
Newsom decided, hey, we're going to put in all these lockdowns just about a month ago, I think it was. The numbers are worse. Like they're not any better because of these lockdowns, right?
Yeah.
So when people can see that and the regular population is like, yo, you made these things happen. Like we're saying, oh, yo, hey yo, Steve, I lost you. Here, give me a second here. I'm gonna get Steve back on here. But what I was saying was when politicians see that they've created these situations where people pretty much are forced to live locked down and their economies are failing. They can't get jobs because they're they're closed. Everything around them isn't open. It puts people in a worse off position, not a better position. And when we can look back at this at the very end and call these people out for what's going on, we're gonna be very surprised to see what the results are because what they're doing now is only gonna bite them later on. As we were saying in New York with people like Governor Cuomo. He's put himself in a terrible spot, and he knows it himself. Well, hey, it seems like I've lost Steve, but I appreciate you guys for listening in. Ty, thank you very much for being a part of the conversation. Um, Got to give it to Crowder. Thank you for being part of the conversation. Vinny, thank you for helping us figure this entire situation out with our sound. We will catch you guys again on Wednesday. Thank you for listening in. Hope you guys have a good night.